Hi, my name is Bob, and I'm here with Sally. Before we get talking about Lemuria, we wonder if any of you have a feeling of a vague sense of familiarity with Lemuria. If so, you can know you were there at one time. We all were, and at this point in Earth's history, there is a concerted effort by the masters of all the great mystery schools to help rekindle our desire for what we had in the past. They want to help us to draw together, to move our civilization forward onto a better path. And it was for this reason that the Lemurian teachings were made available to mankind once again on September 16, 1936. So what brought you to the fair today? Was it curiosity? Perhaps a vague sense of unease? Or maybe a desire to fulfill an inner longing for something deeper, more meaningful and peaceful? Whatever your reason, your presence says that you may be one who does sense this urging by those advanced beings who are doing their utmost to encourage us to a greater harmony with one another and our planet. We're happy to tell you about Lemuria and its ancient teachings, and before we begin, Sally and I were wondering if you have any questions about this ancient and highly advanced civilization. Any questions at this point?
Not yet.
Okay. Well, that's okay. Raise your hand at any point. Feel free to interrupt me, and we're all friends here and want to do the best we can to give you whatever information that you find most helpful.
I interrupt him all the time.
To give you some background on Lemuria that was given to the fellowship by the masters of the Lemurian Brotherhood, we have information at our booth, including free handouts, and welcome you to stop by. We also have a comprehensive website with lots of free material and videos. After our talk today, if you'd like to know more about Lemuria, Sally and I will be around to talk to you at the booth or right outside the room. As many of you may already believe, there was a highly advanced civilization on the continent of Lemuria, also known as Mu, that first began 78,000 years ago. It lasted for 50,000 years before it sank into the Pacific Ocean. You can see on this black and white map where the continent is located in relation to where land is today. So this dark outline on the black and white map is the continent of Lemuria, where it existed in the Pacific Ocean. To give you some perspective, this area here is approximately where Hawaii is today. And of course you can see here is Australia and the west coast of the United States and the west coast of Canada in the upper right. This black and white map was drawn in the 1940s by the Lemurian Fellowship's founder, Dr. Robert Stell. The other map of the Pacific Ocean floor, the color map next to it, was prepared by the National Geographic Society in 1969, more than 20 years later. And it's interesting to see how strikingly similar the two are. If you look at the oceanic ridges on the color map, it's very similar going up through the Rockies, across the Aleutian Islands, down near Australia, and down below New Zealand. It's very similar to the outline of the continent of Mu. And I'll just mention that that's one of the reasons we purchased this color map, because we were really taken with the striking similarity it shows. The Pacific Ocean holds many mysteries in the area where Lemuria existed. There are long ago tales of the sunken continent that have been preserved in the Hawaiian legend of the Menehune, and still told by the Hopi tribe of the American Southwest, who call Lemuria Cascara or sometimes Cuscurza. In their tradition, this was known as the Third World. The Hawaiian legend says that parts of Hawaii and New Zealand, and that Fiji and some other islands of the Pacific Ocean are remnants of the submerged continent. So It's a little bit easier to show on this black and white map, but Hawaii is about over here. And the Hawaiian legend says that the continent went from around Hawaii down to New Zealand, which is basically here. And they mention Fiji, which isn't shown in this map, but it would be right about there. So that shows you what the Hawaiian legend is. The Hopi people say Easter Island. Now, Easter Island is all the way to the east, and it's over here on this map. The Hopi people say Easter Island was part of Mu, and that some of the islands in the Pacific are actually the tops of high mountains that were part of Mu. You can also find interesting information on our website and our videos about Malden Island, Easter Island, and Nan Madol, to name a few. Malden Island is over here on this black and white map, and Nan Madol would be in Pompeii, which is over here on the black and white map. You may wonder how this magnificent civilization started. The advanced beings who first assisted mankind on the continent of Lemuria had experience in establishing successful civilizations on other planetary homes. They came to teach us how to create happiness in life, move closer to God by following the universal laws of God and nature, and to navigate through the complexities of forming a civilization. How many of you here today believe that there are others who exist outside of Earth? That's 100%. That's great. Does it seem logical that some of the more advanced ones have come to be of help to mankind? When I first learned that those who came to Earth to help humanity were of the angelic life wave, even though I didn't know anything about angels, I immediately believed that. It made sense and it was like an inner knowing. But no matter what you believe, the truth is there are wiser beings than ourselves, like God and Christ, who guide us each day if we are alert to them. To turn our attention back to what life was like at the height of the Lemurian civilization, it might be interesting to know that in the Lemurian Empire we've been told that for a period of 12,000 years, there was no report of any theft. Think of that, nothing stolen for 12,000 years. Hard to imagine when you consider how many thefts take place every minute of the day now. Unemployment and poverty, these were unknown. Life was tranquil, purposeful, and there was a cohesiveness of all the people in the empire. But more important were the spiritual values that made life so good. A workman was considered the equal of an executive, and this wasn't because it was a federal or state law that they do so, nor was it something they had to try hard to accomplish. It's because that was how they genuinely viewed one another. That sounds wonderful, doesn't it? To help paint a more vivid mental picture of what life was like back then. And to our newest visitor, we're talking about at the height of the Lemurian civilization. Let's look at the role of women in that society. What was equality really like on the continent? At that time in history, men and women respected one another as equals in a universal sense. Competition played none of the role it does in our world today. They didn't have to prove their worth. How this was made possible was through the Lemurian Empire's careful education and training of its citizens, who were all striving for degrees of spiritual initiation. This was accomplished by starting at a young age to give each individual a thorough education. Providing this instruction to everyone was of deepest concern to the empire, as it knew this was essential to its success. Girls were more highly educated than the boys. This is because the care of the home and the responsibilities for educating the children and future citizens were regarded as the most valuable of all contributions to the welfare of the empire. Yet they also needed to be trained in understanding the economy and governmental aspects of the empire that boys were instructed in as well. Having the full support of the empire, women had the opportunity to rise to the highest levels of government if they wished. Think of what it was like back in Lemuria, not to be afraid of crime, of being unemployed or of falling into poverty. To know that every person was guaranteed equal opportunity for education and personal advancement according to their desire and ability. And this was as a God-given right. When we imagine living in such an ideal place, we tend to picture wonderful advances like we see in sci-fi movies, things we can buy that supposedly make our lives easier, smart refrigerators, self-driving cars, and electronic devices of a dizzying variety. But so far, though, maybe you too feel like all these material advances have seemed to make life more complicated, frustrating, and have moved us away from one another, instead of making our everyday life more relaxed. This is even though many of these inventions are so amazingly advanced. So, what's missing? What's missing is obvious to all of us, and that's the spiritual dimension. When we think of spiritual things, petty happenings matter less to us. Where there is no spiritual balance, there's no feeling of inner peace. The material aspect of life today has grown far out of balance because people are trying so hard to fill a void they sense but don't know how to fill. Try to picture yourself living in Lemuria. Think of quiet and what it was like to feel safe. Take a moment to breathe in its sweet-scented air. Try, too, to imagine how visually appealing it was, with its buildings designed and landscaped to conform to the natural settings and to harmonize with their surroundings. Compared to today's towns and cities, there were no locks on doors or barred windows. Vacant weedy lots or trash-lined highways were not to be found. And the air and waterways could be fully enjoyed because they were free of pollution. Absent were the kinds of over-the-top diversions we've grown accustomed to engaging in to fill our free time and to bring some kind of excitement into our lives. The citizenry had museums and parks and outdoor fun, concerts, and many other pursuits they enjoyed, but nowhere in beautiful and serene Mew were there bars, junk food restaurants, pawn shops, or endless stores all carrying the same things and competing with each other. Let's take a minute and ask yourself if you'd miss any of those. Well, okay, maybe your favorite pizza place and your favorite video game. But who knows, maybe those were part of Lemurian life too, just in different forms. I suppose all of us will need to take one small step at a time before we can let go of some of our favorite escapes. Back then, there were no facades of bright lights obscuring our vision of the night sky. In Maculian cities, you didn't hear the sounds of sirens, since there was an absence of crime. Even the noise inside factories was greatly subdued, as was the sound from vehicles that would almost silently pass you by. They hardly made any noise because of their quiet engine and tires and the special roadway surface. A big part of what made Lemuria different from today is that much of its citizens' free time was spent socializing at home with families, friends, and co-workers, gathering together to enjoy each other's company. Among adults and even older children, talking and sharing information, ideas, and experiences were avid interests of the vast majority of citizens. Lemurians enjoyed many hobbies and projects too that were a great creative outlet and helped deepen many aspects of their nature. There was peace, and people wanted to spend time with each other. Back then, they didn't feel distracted looking for a lot of escapes. A family trip to a beautiful lake was for joy, not to get away from a too hectic life. What are some other examples of what we might find if we were living in the time of the Lemurian Empire? We would probably be struck by how kind people were to one another, their positive attitude, and that they didn't seek credit or recognition for the good they did. When they had a difference of opinion, they respected the other person's right to their point of view. Lemurians learned to resolve differences without letting anger get in the way, and when necessary had impartial mediators who could help. When listening to you, you would notice how patient and genuinely interested they are in what you have to say. Drivers were more courteous than today and would be glad to let another car get ahead of them. And when it came to choosing where to park near a store, they would tend to leave the nearest spaces open as a basic courtesy, or to be available to someone who couldn't walk very far. These are just a few insights into how harmonious life was in that more highly advanced civilization. Let's talk some more about the other side of Lemuria. You may wonder how a society so great and harmonious could fail. And that's a good question. Sadly, in subtle ways, the citizens of Lemuria began to move away from living in harmony with the laws of God and nature. As a result of doing this, their lives and beautiful surroundings gradually deteriorated. This didn't happen overnight, and there were many complex reasons for this. Century by century, mass negative karma piled up as a result of the people not following spiritual principles. It eventually resulted in the destruction of this vast continent. After a series of volcanic explosions and earthquakes over at least 1,000 years, it finally sank into the Pacific. This didn't happen as a result of the failure of universal laws. It was instead a failure of the people to have the will and integrity to follow them. Don't we often seem to want to learn things the hard way? It was so even way back then. Much was lost, but so much good was created that we can bring back again. Do you ever find yourself quietly retreating a moment into an inner longing of what it may have been like to experience a more serene period of human existence? This could very well be your sensing a distant memory from many thousands of years ago, when you lived in the ancient and highly advanced civilization on the continent of Mu. All of us are instinctively drawn towards God or the divine. So what we sense we're missing are actually deeper spiritual connections that we can only have as we bring these back into our lives person to person, and as we do so together. We need to build this new civilization together, and it means understanding cosmic principles. This is why the Lemurian Brotherhood has released Lemurian teachings once again to establish what was lost with the sinking of the continent of Lemuria, and this time without repeating the mistakes of the past. Do you feel a desire to help people and create a better world that's not just wishful thinking and to attain the first degree of initiation, as all citizens worked for in that long ago civilization? The good news is that the Lemurian wisdom teachings can make our life one of greater peace and fulfillment, as was enjoyed in Lemuria. We can help others on our planet move toward a new age civilization that is all-inclusive and based on the Golden Rule. Are you one who feels a sense of mission or purpose you want to fulfill, to bring about positive change in the world? If so, Sally and I would be glad to talk more with you about this. If any of you are interested in stopping by the Lemurian Fellowship in Ramona, we'd be happy to welcome you. Many comment how they are immediately struck by the serenity that surrounds them. Some people can feel how close the masters are, how often they are with us on these grounds, though we're not able to see them with our physical eyes. Feel free to give us a call or send us an email and let us know you'd like to come by. We'll be glad to arrange a time to meet with you. We hope this much information has been interesting, and if you'd like to know more about Lemuria or what the Lemurian Fellowship teaches, come by our booth or visit our website. It's okay too to visit us or send an email. We'll be glad to answer your questions. And for those who came in a little bit past the starting time, if you have any questions about Lemuria, we're glad to answer them. We have two maps here that we talked about a little bit, and we'd be glad to talk about it again if you'd like.
Go ahead and show them the map again.
Okay, well just...
Do you guys want to see the map and know about
Sure.
where Lemuria
Okay.
was?
Is that okay?
Sure.
This black and white map was drawn in the 1940s by our founder, Dr. Robert Stell. And the dark outline on it is the continent of Lemuria, where it was located in the Pacific Ocean in relation to where things are today. Things were different when Lemuria sank 26,000 years ago. Not everything looked the same surrounding it. And we picked up, I'll just mention this area of the continent of Mu is the area that's generally Hawaii. And down here is Australia, New Zealand. And I'm mentioning that because I told some of the people here before that there are Hawaiian legends and legends of the Hopi tribe of the American Southwest that talk about the sunken continent. And the Hopi tribe talks about Easter Island, which is right here, specifically being part of the continent of Mu, and that many of the islands in the Pacific are the tops of very high mountains that were part of Mu. The Hawaiian legend of the Menehune says that the continent ranged from Hawaii down to New Zealand, and also included Fiji, which is about over here. So, that's pretty interesting. This color map on the right, we brought it down because it was done 20 years after this black and white map, and we found it very striking that the oceanic ridges on this color map are very similar to the outline of the continent of Mu.
The thing about the map of the continent of Mu is that this was taken from the Akashic Record by the founder of the Lemurian Fellowship. So this was not based on any, maps that he had seen of other places. So when we found this other map that was done about 20 years later, it was really fascinating to see some of the similarities there. And of course it includes the Ring of Fire. Anyway, does anybody have any questions that we can answer for you?
I'm a firm believer in Lemuria, and I've had a few different past life regressions that I had like many lifetimes there. But I was just wondering, because I did read recently that it was scientifically proven that it wasn't around due to something with like plates in the earth or something like that. Do you guys know anything about that?
That it was what? Scientifically proven?
I don't believe it, but that it's something about how it was disproven because of something about like the Earth's plates or something like that. I was wondering if you've heard anything about that.
Yeah, a lot of times people say, well, what about tectonics and things like that? And first of all, we believe in the information that was provided to the fellowship by the Lemurian Brotherhood, which is a group of masters. And the word brotherhood nowadays kind of bothers people, but this is not.
Yeah.
And this is a positive force of masters. But when you're talking about like health, these scientists say, well, you can't do this because this will happen, and then the others say, well, you can.
Yeah.
So we couldn't tell you whether this is true or not.
Yeah.
But I've been
I don't believe it, but I was just I believe that it exists. And so, are those all channeled messages basically then? Like
not channeled. The founder of the fellowship was a very advanced individual.
Okay.
And he was able to see the Akashic screen, the Akashic Record from the past, and able to bring this forward. And it's in the book, The Sunrises, which we have on our website for sale. And it's about the founding of the first civilization.
Okay.
So a lot of this he was able to see. And he was also given information by other masters in order to help start the study, the Lemurian study, for students to take. And so it isn't, channeled from some other being. Okay. He got the information, and he was given information directly from masters.
And the masters are physical people on the earth? Those are like ascended masters that he's communicating with?
There are masters that no longer use their physical vehicle.
Yeah.
And there are those that do.
Okay.
So.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
I was going to ask something more practical, but
maybe from a different, when you talked about driving and working in factories, like those sorts of things, I'm trying to picture it in my mind as in my life now, going, what were they driving? What were they doing in the factory? Like, I get what the whole, the sense of the society, but I'm curious about the day-to-day, that if we know they were driving something, what were they driving? We knew they were working in factories, what were they doing in those factories? Where they didn't have unemployment, where they didn't have, and where did that information come from?
Well, the information comes from the masters of the Lemurian Brotherhood. And what they were driving would have been vehicles. When Bob said something about tires, I thought,
Yeah, that's
well, what if it was...
I don't know what that means, because automobiles weren't even in, for us physically, right, in this, what I know in this life, right, automobiles didn't come around until the 1920s, I think. So to think back centuries in that, I'm just curious of what did the masters say about what they were driving, what they were,
Well, we're
what
going
were
to
the
tell you.
factories?
Okay, we have been given a picture of a factory in an urban city that, I guess it manufactured automobiles. And the thing that we learned about it is that through using forces of nature, they were able to nullify sound and excess vibration, so that you worked in a more peaceful environment. There's not all this stuff going on. Plus, your relationships with other people were more harmonious. And the various businesses, factories, houses, everything was constructed to conform with nature and the peace and the beauty of nature. So in some of these buildings, there'd be murals that were so lifelike and so beautiful, you would think you were going into a forest. And there is one building that in a university that's built as like a book on its side, and there's doors to go in that way. But the thing I wanted to say about this is that we're not going to be all of a sudden transported into the new order and everything's going to be different or magically different. It's going to be gradual, and we have to, we get to learn how to use cosmic principles in our everyday lives and gradually build this greater peace and work towards earning initiation, which is one step in advancement. And as we do that, understanding how to bring these natural forces into play and work with them harmoniously with nature and with God will come about gradually, but it isn't going to come overnight. And the picture that we are giving you now is as much as we've been given in the lessons of the Lemurian philosophy, but in no way depicts what the new order is eventually going to be like, because we don't know. I mean,
In the new order, what
by
is
the
the
new order,
for-
we mean like a new world civilization.
I see.
This is what the continent of Lemuria is actually on its way back up again, we believe, and have been told. And when it is reestablished, it will be built on the principles of harmony and cosmic law, and the principles that made the Lemurian civilization great. And this is why the Lemurian Brotherhood has released these teachings now, so that we can recapitulate what there was in the past. But nothing comes overnight. So, anyway.
But I think you were first, and then I have another question.
I have a question about what you mean by Lemurian Empire, how that, their political structure and how a singular, how that empire be run, like who gets the emperor? How is that traded down, by emperor to emperor, whatnot, and how does an emperor stay in power without corruption in that sense inside this society? How do they keep it in check? How do they make sure it doesn't go awry?
Well, that's a real good question, because in the world that we live in today, it's pretty hard to imagine that there can be a government without some corruption and some self-seeking. But all positions in the Lemurian Empire, the Lemurian continent, were earned, they were merited based on your values, your work ethic, and how you used cosmic law. So when somebody was in a position, well, first of all, if you were going to be the emperor, you underwent a significant amount of training. And as a matter of fact, all the citizens went through a training period before they became official citizens in the empire, and then they could advance to another level through their spiritual work with themselves and through service to others. And so they had further training, and then there was more training for those who were going to attain positions like emperor. And there were things in place so that if somebody really went off the rails, you know, they would not be allowed or given the opportunity to continue in that way. And yet, because people were working in harmony with the universe and in harmony with universal laws, this would be a very rare occurrence. You know, their whole reason for life was to serve other people and to do the right thing. So we can't tell you every single, you know, specific of how things went, but I can't imagine somebody would be would go off the rails that far. You know, they would have had so much training, and yet, you know, it's kind of interesting you bring that up, because we did in Lemuria start to get off track, and that's when some of these things probably did occur, and but at the height of the empire, people had values, they were honest, and they had integrity, and they cared for other people. And this is one of the purposes of the Lemurian teachings now, is to improve ourselves spiritually, but to also serve other people and think first of other people and how we can build a better world. I mean, I don't think it's doing real great right now. And maybe you guys do, I don't know.
I did. My understanding is that Lemuria was a very matriarchal society compared to Atlantis, which was more of like a patriarchal society. It was much more like feminine based.
I was curious the connection of Lemuria to Atlantis too, in follow-up to your question.
And,
Or what is the
and
connection?
so that's just my first thought when I was hearing about the Brotherhood, like I don't know, from different like readings and things that I've been told from different people that gave me readings also, they said that it was like much more of a feminine society. I don't know if they were mostly just talking about how everyone was very tapped into like their intuition and caring for the planet, and like it being much more feminine in that way.
That's a possibility. That isn't a part of the Lemurian philosophy, that the fellowship teaches that it was a matriarchal society. So that much I don't really know about. What I do know is that there was equality.
Yeah.
And because it was so important that people be well trained, well brought up, and their home was harmonious, women received the education in that, and then also government, industry, and other things. So it's, you know, sometimes when people get information, they view it in one way, and possibly with the important role that women had in the Maquilian Empire, this would be seen as, you know, a matriarchal society or feminine or whatever. But in fact, I think you made a good point about people using more intuition and more, you know, feeling kinds of things, and in tune with nature. And if that is more feminine, then there was more of this.
Yeah.
But there was also the very practical aspects to just keep things running.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, sometimes people think, you know, maybe I was a Lemurian princess, but I keep thinking I was probably a Lemurian housewife. I mean, you know, I don't know.
Yeah.
So.
Why not?
Why not?
Was there a
That's right.
connection, or is there a connection to Atlantis?
Yeah, Atlantis came after Lemuria.
Okay.
And it was another civilization that the masters did pour a lot of effort into to help try to recapitulate what had been in Lemuria. It too failed for the very same reasons. that Lemuria did. We just did it again. And I say we because we believe in reincarnation, and that we've started there and we're here now.
Do we know more about the destruction? Because even tied into when you asked about the emperors and all that, what Bob mentioned is that toward the end, and why it is no longer here, was because of the going against what their beliefs were. Comparing that to today, I think of us in the States, in the US right now, it's like, oh my God, I feel like we're at that moment of like sheer destruction of where it's just so divisive. I live my own life in the way of you know what you're speaking about in Lemuria, but you can kind of get down about everybody else. You feel, you know, you try to put the energy out in the world, but if even Lemuria, if everyone was living this way, something went. It didn't just happen overnight where people went against it. What was that destruction? What was it that they did that caught? Because that's the key too to even now us. If we want to bring this back, we have to know those lessons from the past of why an entire continent was destroyed over a people trying to make a better world, a better life. And even those people couldn't survive, and now we have billions of people who are living the exact opposite of what Lemuria was, and it's still here. I can't in my mind rationalize how. So what I'm saying is I believe, but I'm curious to know, and I think the key for us, if it is a goal that we want this life again, we need to know what went wrong so we can prevent that from happening.
We have a real good point, and one of the things that the Brotherhoods of Masters have done, and Brotherhoods, there are women that are masters, okay? They have compiled a lot of information about what went wrong, what worked, what didn't work. And over the centuries, with all these great civilizations that have come along in Egypt and India and other places, they have analyzed what happened, what went wrong, how can we do it differently this time? And that's why they're releasing teachings like the Lemurian teachings. Let's do it right this time. And, but it's going to take time. You know, there's a lot to undo, but at the moment the world is in a period of turmoil and preparation. It's a time when it's kind of like out with the old and in with the new, and you gotta go through all the gnarly stuff, the difficult stuff to finally get rid of it and get moving towards what's good. And there is a forward movement now. A lot of the brotherhoods are encouraging and urging mankind forward to work towards this new world, and that's what we're all about. Does that answer your question?
Yeah.
Okay. Did you have anything about that you wanted to add?
No, I'm okay.
Thank you.
I have a quick question. How different were the Lemurians, like, as a people? Like, I don't want to say biologically, but if you were to take a Lemurian and place them now into our modern society, how different would they be, or how different would a modern human be compared if you dropped them in? Would that cause any difference? Because Lemurians being, I don't know how specific your teachings are, ancestors to modern day humanity, how much of their society was informed by, I don't want to say biology, but yeah, biology. For example, I'd want to say, I'm going to go to a little side just for a metaphor. Pandas are vegetarians, and they're bears. The reason why they eat bamboo, young bamboo shoots, is because the bamboo is more or less similar enough to the ancestor of the panda's meat, so they could digest it. Okay, sorry. Pandas could eat bamboo because the young leaves were similar to meat, so their ancestors could eat it, and then they could specialize into that. How divergent are we from the Lemurians, and how much of the society?
I don't really know. In the book The Sunrises, this is, it talks about the start of the civilization, and people were pretty much like we are. There was probably more crude features than we have now. There's more refinement in our features as the centuries have gone by. But basically, they had the same physical body that we have. There was no, people have asked us if, they were amphibians or if they were other things, and not that we have ever heard. And Sunrises, it talks about people using the same type of physical vehicle we have now. Does that answer your question?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. Just wondering how their bodies affected themselves, if it's any different to how nowadays diseases or whatnot could kill people and that causes strife and whatnot, and their own bodies was different in that sort of way.
Well, one of the departments they had was the Department of Defense. And you would think of that as being, your army and your rockets and stuff. The Department of Defense was designed to help prevent illness, and people, because they were living in harmony with natural law, didn't tend to be, always at odds and fighting. And probably the atmosphere was a whole lot nicer than it is now too. So the more you are living in harmony with cosmic law, the greater your well-being. And yet, all of us have things that are important for us to have to learn from. And sometimes it may be that if you have a disease, this is for a good purpose. Get rid of some karma, or learn some real, or serve other people through what you learn from what you're doing. So there were positive, I guess it's the constructive thinking or the positive thinking that elevates your physical vehicle as well as you spiritually. And that's another thing in the philosophy. We work to balance the three sides of our nature. And you've got a material side and a mental side and a spiritual side. And we try to get these in harmony. And when you're in harmony, there's less disease. But not 100%, I don't think. I don't know.
I think they lived longer.
Probably.
Like, I heard something in an auto book that they would, sorry if I know, that they would, park their physical body and, leave it, and they would travel, kind of in their spiritual bodies, and then, come back and use their physical body. So then, since they weren't using their physical body as much, they lived much longer.
I don't know. Interesting thought.
What is the connection to Mount Shasta?
Mount Shasta is it's a spiritual place. It is a beautiful place. And there was a time, a few decades ago, when there were a group of adepts, Lemurian adepts, that were there. And what happens is, people start knowing about it and start getting in and kind of just jostling things up, and so they moved out of that area. And we are not connected with the activities at Mount Shasta, but do feel that it is a very lovely and spiritual place.
I have a question for you. I'm really intrigued. My question is, what would you tell someone, top 10 things you need to know about this, if someone had no idea what this is?
What the map is, or what
The
Lemurian?
whole thing, what you guys are talking about.
I dragged him in here.
No, I'm very intrigued. It's super interesting. So I'm just asking for what would you tell somebody if they're what I just asked you, top things that we should know about this, or because someone that doesn't know anything about it.
Yeah. I was in your shoes one time.
Okay.
I'd heard the word Lemuria. I'd heard Atlantis more often, but I didn't know anything about it other than Atlantis existed, and some weird tales from it. And I went to every used bookstore I could find. I read all these books. I went to all these seminars, took all these courses, and I was just always looking for something. It's sort of what this talk talks about. What are you looking for? What are you trying to find that's fulfilling? But anyway, to make a long story short, I saw an ad in one of the backs of these books that I was reading. There was an ad from the Lemurian Fellowship, and it just said, if you want to become a better person and help make this a better world, you can join others. You know, I don't remember if they said the Lemurian Brotherhood. I didn't know what a brotherhood was. I didn't know what a mystery school was. But I sent away and I got the brochure, and I can't explain it, but the brochure sold me. I just read it. This is what I was always looking for, and then I began, you know, I enrolled and I began taking, you know, what I call, it's a course. It's you take a lesson, which is a booklet, and you read it, and it tells you a part about cosmic principles or Lemuria, and then when you finish that, you get your next booklet. We have tons of free information at our booth. We have the, you know, free brochures, and our website is amazing. In fact, it's so comprehensive, it's almost too much information. It has everything you'd want to know on it, lots of articles. But I guess that's my answer to you. I was in your shoes, and I heard about it for the first time, and it just struck an inner chord with me. And as I've been doing this, I've been a student for about 40 years now. So as I've been doing this, I've had a number of, you know, I'll call it experiences, where things really resonated deeply with me. And, you know, I feel really sure about what I'm doing and the purpose of it, and that there is higher help, you know, behind the scenes for all of us.
When we were at one of the expos in LA, when we were in the elevator, somebody said, "Give me your elevator talk."
There you go.
And to try to do that, there was a continent in the Pacific, and on that continent was a very highly advanced civilization because people lived in harmony with cosmic universal laws. And it rose to great heights that lasted 50,000 years. And when it did start to deteriorate, then things moved to Atlantis, where there was a similar effort. It did not last as long. But what's happening now is that the masters of the Lemurian Brotherhood have released the teachings that made this empire great, so that we can recapitulate what happened there. And the purpose is to advance spiritually, because masters are human beings, and they've advanced because of how well they worked in harmony with cosmic law. And so our purpose is to advance to a higher level, but in doing so, our other equally as important purpose is to help other people, to serve other people. And forming a civilization like this requires blending with and being with other people, and not separating into, you know, little different groups or whatever. And that's not always easy. But does that answer your question?
Yeah, thank you very much. Give me some more clarity on it for sure.
Yeah.
So if it started, or if it fell 25,000 years ago, 26, sorry, and it was around 50,000, then you're saying it started 75,000 years ago?
78,000.
Okay. So yeah, so that's funny that it was like millions of years ago.
A million years ago?
Yeah, like millions
Wow.
of years, yeah.
Well, the actual Maculian Empire started 78,000 years ago, but it doesn't mean mankind started 78,000
Yeah.
years ago. I mean, the
Like
human physical vehicle and human beings were advancing and
Yeah.
moving forward to a point where they were finally able to be contacted by these more advanced
Yeah.
angels from the Venus and Mercury, and given information to help build a civilization, because on their planets this had been done successfully,
Yeah.
and they were asked to come and help
Yeah,
us.
they come again. Thank you.
Mhm.
One final note. It looks like we survived. You know, San Diego was on the map, which means that San Diego and California and up the coast, right, of the North American continent is the remaining remnants of Mu. Right?
See, you're
According to the
standing
map.
on,
Yeah.
standing on hallowed ground, huh?
You know, there's a lot of, you know, you can see Australia, New Zealand, there's some,
Yeah.
there are lands that are above the Pacific Ocean
Right.
that were part of the continent of Mu.
Cool.
Yes, ma'am?
How do we learn the teachings?
Well, we've
Like,
got-
I thought, I kind of looked on the website a little bit, and I don't know if it's by like invitation, or is it like if I just showed up on a Sunday morning, or whenever you guys have the teachings, would I be welcomed, or would it be like,
Well, this is, there's a series of lessons that you work with, and you would enroll as a student if that's what you want to do, and that information is on the website. And you work with each of these guidebooks, step by step, until you reach a certain point in your training, where you move into an advanced training. And when you reach a certain point in that advanced training, then you become a member of the Lemurian Order, which is a student organization, a group of Lemurians who've reached a certain point in their training, and they are located out in Ramona as well. The Lemurian Fellowship is the teaching headquarters, and then there's a student showing how to live by Lemurian values and in a community, and that's in another part of Ramona. Does that answer your question?
yeah?
Good. Anyway, if you'll see enrollment information on on our website. Also, we've got some introductory material in our bookstore if it helps to get an understanding of how the Lemurian philosophy applies to everyday life now. For example, there's the Lemurian viewpoints, and there's also a book called Lemurian Connections, where there's some writings of Dr. Stells, who was the founder, and information about Lemuria, and then there's also stories of how different Lemurian students and order members have used the Lemurian philosophy in their life with some of the really hard things that we face nowadays in dealing with health, family, job problems, things like that. So, if you can't find it on our website, I don't know where you could find it.
Are most people drawn to this because like they have ancestors, or is it just because it's a way of life, or is it because that's their like the spiritual path that they're in?
Well, that's kind of hard to answer. For me, I'm pretty sure that I was a part of this in the past, wanted to continue to be a part of it, and wanted to devote my life to it. So when my mother made me read the first lesson, because I was still living in her house, I rolled my eyes and like, whatever. I read it and that was it. That was it. I was going to do this because I could serve mankind, I could advance, and it gave me steps I could take. You know, you hear about karma and you hear about reincarnation, you think, okay, that's fine, I believe that, but what do I do to make my next life better? What steps can I take? That's what I wanted to, and that's what the Lemurian philosophy provides. Anyway, at our booth we have a introduction to lesson 1 that can give you a real helpful insight into what is taught in the series of lessons. Anyway, you're welcome to have one if you want to come by the booth.
I will, we just got here, I'll walk around and I'll.
Okay, sure.
You mentioned, was it, sorry, I had a little break, you didn't say masters, not masters, but, was it masters?
Mhm.
Masters, yeah. Are you guys, I almost feel, I feel like you guys are like our masters, when you say masters.
Oh, I wish, oh my
Yeah,
God.
I mean, he said he has 40 years in it,
I know.
so he's not like considered a master?
Not to my knowledge.
I'm definitely not a master.
Okay.
No,
So
we,
it takes several lifetimes or something, is that kind of what you're getting at, maybe?
yeah, because it, you know, to read something is one thing, and to read it and try it is another, but to live it and live it and live it and deeply understand it takes a long time.
And, you know, just to imagine if starting today, you're always, without exception, to be patient to everyone you meet, always kind, no matter what. I mean, that's really hard. And that'd just be, if you could do all that, that would be one of the qualities of a master. And then there's much more than that.
But this is where we learn, and the Lemurian philosophy helps us to attain one of the first steps, which is an initiation. And there are several initiations till you reach a point of becoming an adept. And there's a few stages of that to mastership. So it does take lifetimes. But a better time to start than now. So we're probably going to have to wrap it up because it's almost 4 o'clock and somebody else. But did you have any last
No,
questions?
thank you so much.
Thank you.
I appreciate it.
Well, thanks for coming.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.